here. Welcome
I
to
do,
2023.
We're talking about the various ways in which you do this. I was introduced by my dear daughter. She gave me a Christmas present. It's an online program called Storyworth.
Storyworth. I think I have heard of that.
Yes.
And it's
And so you can go online and type in whatever it is that you want to put into your daily reflection.
okay.
Because I had started handwriting a bunch of them.
Right.
And then when she gave me that, I just go online now.
Right.
Now the beautiful part is, at the end of a year's time, this Storyworth, this
program.
internet application,
Thanks.
they
I thought it
will,
was today signed in, I see already signed in here.
Thank you.
they will publish everything you have written into a book.
Okay, so there's a small fee involved to organize this.
I don't know what she
I'm
paid.
pretty sure there is, and it's over a year's time.
Yes.
So certainly, yeah, this can be done in 100 different ways. And there's no right or wrong way. The whole point of the class is to encourage one another to actually get it done and to do it in some kind of a timely fashion before we either lose our memory or something happens to us catastrophic that, you know, debilitates us to be able to get it done. So however we do it, storyworth.com is probably worth looking at as a way if you want to just type it into a system and have them assemble it for you. You can of course just type it in yourself and then we can do it or you can do it. And
Can I do if I just talking to my phone and then getting my daughter to print it up?
you can. That's
That's what I've been doing. I've been writing my story for a while now.
wonderful, wonderful.
And but it's not. It doesn't have any punctuation. It doesn't have the proper. You know,
Yeah,
I have to
that's
go
all
back and
editing that can come later.
redo all that.
Yeah,
You know?
what you want is this stream of thought, because once memories start, the way our brain works is they starts popping, it reminds you of this and that, and you want to just keep going with it and not worry about, you know, periods and commas and whether or not it's the right tense or anything like that, because that can all be done later. So yeah, I'd say you can do it with an audio recorder, you can do it with a video camera, you can do it by handwriting, which I'm finding for me is the best, because then I know I'm going to go back through and adjust it when I put it in the computer.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Maybe
Right.
I should switch over and start to write it all out.
Right, I find that for me, it allows me to put my flow of thought down and then look back at it the next day and say, oh yeah, well I should have put a few other things in here and I can adjust it and that way if I just put it in the computer, well you can do the same thing as well, but somehow with a pen you can scratch something out and write over it and that kind of thing. So those are the ways that we can do it. What we're doing is whatever works for you. Our goal is, again, over the 8 weeks between now and the end of February to cover the basic 4 seasons of life from childhood through education, marriage and family, and then retirement, and writing at least about 15, maybe as many as 20 different memoirs out or memories, and then compiling them chronologically, and then we can add more to it later. Obviously we're not done living, there's going to be more, but at least we have something, a skeleton to hang it all on and start adding to it. As it could be that when you get together with your family and see picture album, it'll remind you. And by the way, you know, the great thing about doing it digitally, you know, ultimately is that you can begin to throw in photos. It'll make it so much more like a scrapbook and more interesting for posterity to look at, and also pictures do help stimulate our memories quite a bit. So that's yeah. So we're working with a list for those who are just new here of about 155 prompting questions. You can come up with your own questions. You don't even need this, but these, I hope some of you have found as you've gotten started, helpful to get the ball rolling, so to speak. And what I did was I went through in the retirement section and checked off about 15, or I actually ended up writing 18. I've already gotten that one done. So I'm getting into a flow of doing this. I don't know how much progress you've made on it so far between the last class, but sort of the working assignment is, if you can, 15 to 20, 30 minutes per day. And then each week we'll, if we can get 1 or 2 of these questions done per day, then by the end of 8 weeks we'll have the 60 or more that would give a pretty good overview of our life and a good starting point. So I went through and just checked off some of the ones that struck me, and I hope that you can, you've done the same thing. An example of what do you want to be remembered for? That was one that I checked off. Personality changes, how has your personality changed since you were young? Hopefully it has something. How has it changed, and are you happy or unhappy about the changes? Some of them that I really enjoyed doing, I want more, what do you want more of in your life? What are you doing to reach that goal? What would be an ideal life for you? Can you describe what an average day and an ideal life would be like? What's holding you back from having that? That kind of thing. So, and low points, I found that one to be helpful. Make a list of the low points in your life, and don't back away from painful moments. Pick one of these moments and write about it in more detail. So I went into detail about a very low point in my life, and I think that the fact that I was able to overcome it will be of encouragement to my children, grandchildren, posterity, etc. So it doesn't all have to be just the good things about what's happened in your life. It can be the good, bad, and the ugly, because that's what a life is. Every life is. And so that's what we're doing here, and I'm here to help in any way. Again, the class is called Telling Your Life Story, and we think that every life has a value. There's wisdom that we've all accumulated that is deep within us, and we need a little help sometimes pulling it out. And so that's what these prompting questions are for. If you want to add your own questions to it, great. The point is just to sit down and actually do it, and to have the discipline. I'm finding in the morning after my coffee, that's a good time for me. And if I have time later in the afternoon, I'll come back to it and spend some more time with it. I'm actually quite enjoying it, and have already moved from the retirement to the next career and family part of it. And so I'm going to be trying to be ahead of the curve, being as how I'm teaching the class, I guess. But anyway, so today, does anybody want to share either a memoir that they've done this last week, or what their experience has been during these couple of weeks that we had to get started? If so, feel free.
I'm happy to share,
Oh, wonderful.
since that's why we're here,
Yes.
she said. So first, I actually just wrote, actually it looks like I wrote 4 or 5 different times, or 5 different subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And the one I wrote that was the travel story #1, I would like to share.
Good.
Okay. There was a single day of travel that stands out for me. Deep in the Caribbean, an hour's ferry ride from St. Martin is the island of Saba. It is quite a refined island, with every building finished off the same, and surprisingly, it is part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Saba's 5 square mile size is largely taken up with a volcano described as active, Mount Scenery, which at 2,910 feet is the highest point in the entire Kingdom of the Netherlands. At the top of that volcano is a tropical rainforest with incredible old growth vegetation. The locally well-known brand of this island is a single mountain with a rain cloud ringing the top. My trip to Saba was an adventure in transportation, in cultural discovery, and it was filled with delightful interactions with people. My husband and I traveled by ferry to Saba on a day trip from St. Martin in the early 2000s. When we arrived at Saba, the larger group split seamlessly into two. One group donned wetsuits and prepared for a day of diving. Our group was directed to a string of taxi cab drivers for personal tours. At the price of $10 for the day, we could not say no, and we were off. We went on the only road while our driver entertained us with the story of the Italian self-made engineer who had come to Saba with a vision of building a road. Everyone told him it couldn't be done. He accomplished it anyway, although it took 40 years to construct. It's a lovely windy road up and down, and along the way there are vistas of the world's smallest international airport with a runway of 1,300 feet. Another marvel to construct and quite a challenge to fly into. The island was originally occupied by the Shiboni people in 1100 BC, in spite of its forbidden and steep coast. Pirates found refuge there in the 17th century, and later, legitimate sailing and trade became important. The lovely cottages were uniform, all white, all with red roofs, and all sporting green shutters, even today. We learned about the Saba University School of Medicine, Caribbean Medical School, that has been located on the site for now more than 30 years. Truly an amazing feat for an island with 1,933 residents in 2020. The island was full of lovely flowers and vegetation, and nothing was quite as exciting as our first stopping point. We arrived at an eco-lodge with modest cottages and a little bar restaurant at the foot of the trail that led to the top of the volcano. I made ready to climb with another tourist, while my husband happily settled in to wait with yet another visitor. I climbed the old trail, made up of stone steps, probably hundreds of years old. The trees got bigger and older, and the vegetation became more diverse. One of my prized possessions, even today, is the picture of me, snapped by my hiking companion as I reached the top, surrounded by the green forest in the middle of my first rainforest. Next, my husband and I met up with our taxi driver who had taken his break and picked up his son while we were at the eco-lodge. Now the five of us continued our travels. We wandered on and landed in the center of town. There we were invited to visit each home and shop where the owners told their stories and were selling their wares. And their wares were amazing. The island is known for its Saba lace, and although that did not tempt me, I did pick out a beautiful blouse that is flowing and decorated with lovely orange flowers on a neutral background. I still wear it on special occasions. For years, my husband and I would sip the bottle of homemade liqueur that we purchased that day, packaged in a reused hot sauce bottle. Finally, it was time to return to Saba. The full day was made even more complete by our dancing on the ferry ride home to live music. I still have that picture of us dancing and remember it as one of our treasured moments. Funny how one ordinary day can bring me such joy and such wonderful memories. I treasure that trip.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Yeah, so I lost my husband in 2019, and so makes it especially important.
Yes. That's a wonderful story.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
I know how that can be emotional because I lost my wife 4 years ago. And we've been married for 60 years when she passed away. Life is extremely hard without her.
Yes.
So I know where you are come from. I'm exactly the same.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. I never even heard of the island. I've been to St. Martin. I never knew there was another.
I know, it's
Little
like
island
a
over
magic
there.
place.
I actually have a story about St. Martin too, but it's very short. We somehow, my wife and I and the youngest daughter, I went to get sunglasses repaired and she went in the ocean, left her purse on the beach and chased after Breda, and all of our ID and money was stolen out of the purse within moments. And we ended up spending the day in the St. Martin police station because they, without ID, they don't wait for somebody from the cruise line to come and get you. And so that was my St. Martin story. All I have to show for it is a hat that has a little piranha fish on it that reminds me of that was the day to remember that we didn't really, but it was still fun. You know, Breda was only 7. You know, 7-year-olds can have fun in jail. You know, to them it's just another new experience. You know, so meanwhile, my now ex-wife Mickey blamed me. She said, if you hadn't gone to get those sunglasses repaired, none of this would have happened. So as usual, it was my fault. But anyway, that might make it into one of my travel stories, I suppose. But anyway, so yeah, travel stories are fun and exciting because we're in new territory and we're reflecting on who we were with and the feelings that we had and the warm memories that we have of those that we love. Today in the outline I just put together a little thing that I simply titled From Retirement to Re-Inspirement, because we're right now on the section of writing about things in our retirement for last week and this next week, and then we'll move on to the next. But I just put down a few thoughts in here. Webster defines retire as to withdraw from action, to retreat for privacy, to move backward, to withdraw from occupation, or to conclude working or a career. And so all 4 of these are in some way or another withdrawals or moving backward and mark the end of a certain season of our life where we work full time, right? The question though, I think a lot of people, after they do finally stop working is, you know, where do I go from here? Now what? A lot of people get so darn bored with doing nothing because they've done something their whole life that they go back into either volunteering or create a whole new, what some people refer to as an encore career, where they go into a whole line of, whether it be art, to becoming an artist or a musician or like I say, a volunteer or whatever. But the point is that with statisticians, how do you say that?
Statisticians?
Statisticians, thank you. Say that the average life expectancy in the 21st century is going to be 90 years or more. And so, you know, we've, ready or not, about a third of the population is entering into a new season of life in which there's really no precedent for, because you remember that when retirement was set up at age 65, the life expectancy was like 68. So the government figured you're going to be around for about 3 years, and so the whole Social Security system is skating on very thin ice right now. Some say it'll go bankrupt within years. Many of the younger kids, millennials, etc., have already settled in their mind they're not going to probably get anything because there won't be anything left by the time they are ready to retire, which is kind of an interesting and somewhat sad thing because they have to pay into it, and some of them are kind of a little honked off that they have to pay into it for us. And but anyway, statistically today another 10,000 people are turning 65. that's about 3 million a year for the next 10 years. So there's a wave of baby boomers, so to speak, that are hitting retirement age, and the generation prior to that, the so-called greatest generation, there are about 7,500 that are passing away every day, or about 2 million, and so there's a big change going on in society right now, a big transfer of information, of wisdom, of money, of a lot of things. And that's one of the reasons why this class and I think writing out our life story is important, to be able to help give them some kind of a roadmap, because we should be the so-called elders of the society, not just elders by chronological, but in our wisdom. And so there's a certain responsibility to the millennials, Generation X, Y, and Z, and all the other names they've come up with now for all the generations. I feel that there's sort of a responsibility to share this. And again, that's part of why this class I think is important, and that we're doing this not just as an exercise in narcissism of, wow, my life was so great, I got to write about it, like I hope it's a bestseller. Unlikely. It might be of great interest to your family and a few friends, etc. But and it might be something that, wow, is just really well written and can inspire a lot of other people. But one of the books that impacted me about a decade ago, I started a website for baby boomers called primelifers.org. And one of the books that impressed me was written by a fellow by the name of Mark Friedman. And he founded Encore.org. And it's a whole organization that's essentially, by the way, it's just changed its name to Cogenerate.org. They thought that was a better, because they want to be branded as bringing generations together. As you know, in our society, we've become very compartmentalized by age group, and that's not the way it used to be. I mean, it used to be that you'd had 3 or 4 generations living under the same roof, and there was a real intergenerational exchange going on. But with modernization and jobs pulling people all across the country and things like that, it all changed to where our families are not that cohesive system to care for us as we age, etc. But in any case, in the book, The Big Shift, Mark Friedman makes an impassioned case for baby boomers and seniors to accept these new decades that we have due to health breakthroughs as, between midlife and real true old age, as an entirely new stage of life. So we're like plowing new ground here. And he thinks that these encore years can be our most productive. If you look at some of the greatest inventions that were done over time, many of them were done by people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, by famous people. And so, contrary to what many people believe, that retirement is a time of winding down, slowing down, clipping coupons, only playing golf, and that kind of thing. There's Friedman tries to call people toward envisioning this new chapter as a time where we make some of our most important contributions to ourselves, to the world, and to future generations. So that book and another one that is, I think, very important, entitled Falling Upward by Richard Rohr. By the way, these are listed in the back of the list of questions. I put together a humble list of about 50 books that I've read or listened to as audiobooks that I found quite helpful in reflecting during this season of life, now that we have more time, on who we are, what is an elder. Some of them are entitled like The Soul's Slow Ripening by Christine Painter, The Art of Loving by Eric Fromm. That was a real true classic. Listening to the Heartbeat of God, by the way, that's the one by Dr. Philip Newell that I'll send you the review of, which calls us to hearing the heartbeat of God and seeing God in all of creation, not just in a religious setting on a one day a week. In any case, you can look over the list, and it includes everyone from C.S. Lewis to Martin Yipo to Richard Rohr and many, many others, Rabbi Shapiro. So it really crosses all borders. And one of them I really enjoyed. I wrote a song on it by Parker J. Palmer, who's a Quaker, and he wrote a book entitled On the Brink of Everything. And he was inspired by a young mother watching her 2-year-old stumble down the street. And she said, my child is on the brink of everything at age 2. And he thought that was such a great title that he used it for the title of his book, because no matter what our age, we really are on the brink of everything and anything. It's all new every day. And so, that's the fun of life and growing and thriving. And so rather than just surviving, my hope is that as we write this, we get inspired to share those things that have made us a special, unique people. And I'm writing thinking in terms of my great-great-grandchildren, because I already have 3 great-grandchildren that I'll be able to share with. They're very young, only under 1 at this point. One of them's not even born yet. But I'm thinking in terms of the generation after that, because I likely won't be around. You never know, I might make it another 20 years. But in any case, anybody else want to share anything that any of the questions that they got started with?
This one, which you said, your first memory, I have a very clear view of that.
Oh, really? Yeah, love to hear that.
I was 4 years and 8 months
Okay.
old at the time, and I was at home because you didn't start school until you were 5 years old, right? So I was the only one at home. We were at that time 5 brothers and a sister. Sister was the eldest, and then all boys after that. And my mother was in bed, and she called me, and I went in the bedroom, and she told me that she was feeling sick and that she needed a nurse. So she said, son, I want you to go and get the nurse for me. She gave me the address, which was in another street, and told me to go there, and she gave me the number of the house and knock on the door and so forth. So, given my age, but I was able to find the house, which was in another street, and knocked on the door, and the nurse came to us and said, what? I said, my mom is ill, and she said she needs you to come and visit with her. So she said, okay. She went back in and grabbed a little bag a leather bag, I guess, with whatever she needed. And then she took me by the hand and took me back to her home. And then when we get there, she goes into the bedroom and says to me, no, you can't come in here, you go and stay outside. So why I remember exactly when it was and how old I was, because that's when my brother Melvin was born. So I know by his date of birth and so forth, right? But that was my first memory, and I wasn't even 5 years old.
Wow. Wow, memorable day. You had your younger brother then. So you're the oldest of the boys?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was number 8.
Whoa.
After me was Melvin, who was born when I was, and then after that, another sister. So the only ones left in England are Melvin, who is he's 83, 88, so 5 years basically older than him. And then my baby sister, and she's 81, I think. All the rest of the family have all passed away now. But we were all together, we were 10 children, 7 boys and 3 girls. A boy and a girl died when they were 4 years old, so I never knew them, knew them, but you know, I knew afterwards that they passed away. But you had big families then because medication wasn't like it is today. You know. My eldest sister, her first child died when she was 1 year old with whooping cough.
Yeah.
And I remember we used to take her out in the pram and push, and she would cough up blood and so on. You know. So, and I don't know what my other, you know, brother and sister that died before I was born. I just know that they died when they were 4 years old. So I imagine some other kind of disease that they couldn't do anything about it, you know. But that was my first memory.
Yeah. Wow.
After that, it comes when the war broke out when I was 5. So that's another episode of how we got bombed every night and so on. So I've got all that to write about.
Wow. Yeah, I love hearing other people's story and their memories of times. You know, that's why I'm a big fan of Turner classic movies, because it fills me in on what happened in the 30s, 40s, and 50s before I was born. And a lot of the very best movies ever made, I think, best scripts, best acting, best messages that were sent through movies. You know, movies used to have to be approved by a board that consisted of a Jewish rabbi, a Catholic minister, and a Protestant minister. They had to approve the script before they could make the movie.
We're heading that way again, aren't we?
Right, because they had to make sure that there was some cultural benefit to the production of this movie. In other words, it wasn't just frivolous, nor did it elevate evil winning out over good, etc., as some modern movies do. And so, and you know, there's of course criticism that during that era a lot of things got censored and creativity was stifled, and you know, so there's a whole different view about whether it was good or bad. But the point of it is, as a result of it, you had things like, you know, It's a Wonderful Life, you know, and The Bishop's Wife, and I mean, these movies that were truly inspiring and lasted still today, you know, 80, 90 years later as classics that tell a story of, well, like in the case of It's a Wonderful Life. I watched that on Christmas this year again for like the umpteenth time. But I looked at different things about it that I didn't notice before, and thought about, because I'm, you know, in the middle of working on this autobiography, thinking about what would the world be like, and I thought that'd be a great question too. If you'd never been born, how would the world be different? How would it be different? I mean, certainly it would be different for your children and grandchildren, because they wouldn't be there if you weren't born. But we don't really appreciate our own life until somehow it's taken away from us, or it's, you know, we lose something. This last year I had major surgery. I had a double lung transplant in May, and that was for me brush with death. And so I had didn't have any guarantee of that I was going to continue. In fact, I even expired on the operating table, according to the surgeon, and which was its own experience. But you don't appreciate what we have until we don't have it, and so writing down our life is really doing. For me, it's been a fun experience, and I'm looking forward to getting getting it done, and it's really not ever done. It's an ongoing story, but getting enough of it done that I could make it as a gift in a year or so to kids and grandkids is something that they can have. So that's why we're here, and I hope you're all having that positive feeling as you work on this project. Yeah, did you want to share or something?
Well, it just, something I hadn't thought about for so long, about earliest memory.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said Pram, it all of a sudden came to me, and I still don't, I'd love to get the answer. I was either 6 months old or 18 months old.
Wow.
And I remember this so distinctly, and so frustrating, I don't know how old I was. But I was born in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
and this happened in the winter, so my father had taken, it was ice, and it had been a winter day, and this was Connecticut, and I was in a baby buggy, like this, looking up at the sky, and I could see the frame of the part that was pushed down, and it was a bright blue sky, and the sun was shining, there was snow, and it was shining on all the ice on all the branches, and it was just so magical. And I remember within myself, I was saying to myself, this is so frustrating because I want to tell him how beautiful it is, and I haven't learned how to speak yet. And it was going in my, that emotion, I was so frustrated because it was so magnificent, it was just affecting me emotionally, and I knew I couldn't express it because I hadn't learned how to speak yet.
Yeah, but some people say that during your, up until about 2 or 3, you still have memories from your former life. So if you were reincarnated, you would have been having that thought process, but not being able to express it. And then you kind of forget it. But my 3-year-old grandson, when he was 3 years old, now he's 12, he said, I'm only here to love. That's what he stated. And even till today, at 12, he walks up to me every time. He always gives me a hug. We decided he is a caring person. He will be that person.
Yeah.
That's what he is,
But it's not a carryover because my father was there. I could see him. I could see the house.
Yeah.
I could see.
Yeah, no, but it was your memories. This is just conjecture.
No.
But the thought is, it was your memories from your past life, your intelligence from your past life. You still had some of that. You wanted to share it, but there you weren't ready yet. And then, then you forget, and then you go on.
Well,
Yeah.
it was so frustrating because I couldn't
Yeah.
verbalize it, and I was just,
Yeah.
I wanted to get it out. I couldn't.
That's a neat story right there. That is a very neat story.
Yeah.
There's a saying there, buy me flowers while I'm alive, not don't buy me flowers to put on my grave. Just another way of telling somebody you love them,
Yes.
It's just,
Yeah.
love makes the world go around, so, and, people nowadays, they talk about love, we're gonna make love, but, that's not it, They're talking about sex, so that, well, no, it's, you'll love somebody, which the results of you would have sex, but it's not, we're gonna make, it doesn't work, but, like I said before, I think we're all born with love in our hearts,
Absolutely. Love is our middle name. Your grandson has it right, that it's what we're all here for.
Yeah.
And it's love wins in the end. So that's the wonderful good news about life, is that there's nothing to fear in death. There's nothing to worry about, and that should give us great encouragement as we go on through life. I see our time is about run out for today, and so our assignment for next week is to write another 6 to 8 questions from the retirement section. And so that would bring us up to roughly 12 to 16 total, or more. By the way, there's no reason why you can't write. I wrote, I think, 18 out of the first section, and then I went on to the second section. So you certainly can do more, but that's at least a minimal amount so that we have a pretty good idea of what's happened so far, and then we'll move to the next section.
Where's the retirement section?
Retirement section of questions is part 4 in the listing of the questions. If you keep going there, you'll see there's part 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so we're kind of starting at the back and working forward with the idea that certainly there's no reason why you can't start with that first question you did with your earliest memory.
Right.
Feel free to write, and that's the reason for the binder, is to divide it into 4 sections of life. And so if you have a memory from another part of life, stick it in the section appropriate for that part of life, and that way they'll be somewhat together in a chronological fashion. So, and let me we'll make a copy for you so that you have everything. And blessings to you. I'll see you next week. We won't have this big interruption. And I have a video, or I'll send an email out with a link to where I'm posting the notes and videotapes of this class, so you can see what we covered last week if you want, on an internet link that I'll send to your email address, and I'll send you that story that you wanted, okay?
Thank you.
Is this being taped? Everything we're
It
saying?
is. Everything is on the record.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but